Next up, SECOS Group and Richard Tegoni. Richard.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming and listening to our talk on bioplastics. SECOS Group, if you haven't heard of us before, is a specialist in bioplastics industry. Our vision is to be a leading market provider of bioplastics in the market. I think the best way to describe the bioplastics industry is to understand the difference between traditional plastics, which is something that we've all grown up in as a very mature market, and what is now an emerging market, being bioplastics. And I think you'll find that most products around the world, you know, I dare estimate, but probably half of everything that's ever been produced has some form of plastics in it. Even in building products, you know, the things that we obviously see like drinking bottles and plastic bags and all those obvious things, but plastics exist in cars and a whole range of different products around the world in different forms. To simplify our business, you really need to understand that bioplastics, or plastic itself, is traditionally derived from oil. And oil is something that is non-degradable or non-renewable. So when you turn oil into a polymer and you produce plastic, you're creating something that's probably going to sit in our environment for the next 1,000 years. SECOS Group has spent the last 10 years developing bioplastic technology, which is derived from cornstarch, and that technology allows us to produce plastics that in many cases are just as good or even better than the plastic applications that you see or that we've used for many, many years in the world. The difference being because they're derived from cornstarch, which is a renewable substance, that material can actually degrade back into the environment and be reused. So if you haven't, I'm sure all of you, you know, I don't know where you would have been in the last 12 months if you haven't heard some of the media and issues surrounding and lobbying goes against plastics. There's a huge movement in moving towards bioplastics over the last 12 months. This technology was developed over the last 10 years. Certainly in the early days, breaking into the market's been a very big challenge, but over the last couple of years, and you'll see through our presentation, we've seen a massive shift in the market. So I'll tell you a little bit about the company. We're a small cap business trying very hard to be a big cap business. We've capped at around 20 million mark. 42% of the company is owned by management, and about the top 20 shareholders own about 50% of the company. 20% of our shareholders are from the overseas, most of them being US investors. The business is actually made up of two companies that merged 3 years ago. So originally the technology was developed by a company called Cardia Bioplastics. That was a tech company that developed the technology. It was obviously having trouble to commercialise it. So part of our commercialisation strategy, it merged with a very experienced plastics manufacturing company that actually manufactured, what we're calling traditional plastics. That happened about 3 years ago, and the company SECOS was formed. Under the group, we have two bioplastics plants, one in Nanjing, which was the original bioplastics business. More recently, we've just launched a new bioplastics manufacturing site, which is actually due to launch next month to deal with our increased demand. We have two traditional plastic businesses, which is two cast lines or film lines that make hygiene film, one in Melbourne and one in Kuala Lumpur. As far as distribution and sales go, we have distribution channels or our own sales teams in the US, Melbourne, Nanjing, and Kuala Lumpur, and we have distributors throughout the world, the Middle East, India, South Africa, and so on. We also have our own retail distribution channel called Myco Pet, where the pet industry in particular is a very lucrative area to sell bioplastic products or environmental film products. Recently, particularly in Australia, if you've been in the news, there's been huge media coverage on the war on waste. You would have seen that media in the news all the time. There are a number of different drivers that's changing the market, particularly over the last 12 months, which is causing a lot of the demand we're seeing. Legislation is driving it, so we're seeing markets where governments are banning plastic bags or single-use plastic bags in particular, and different plastic products to assist with the environment. You're seeing large corporations starting to move, realising that there's a huge demand by consumers and by legislators to change the market, so they're starting to implement strategies to do that, and companies like Nestle, McDonald's, even in Australia, Amcor announced renewable energy or renewable plastic targets over the coming years publicly. And the cost of actually disposing of these products are becoming so prohibitive that the actual shift towards bioplastics is becoming viable. And in Australia, for example, some of the landfill charges, and there's a little chart there showing that the cost of landfill tipping fees have gone up so much that it's becoming very, very difficult to actually dispose of landfill plastics that obviously will take thousands of years to degrade in the marketplace. So a combination of all these factors has created a bit of a perfect storm for SECOS Group and producing and selling bioplastics. Those drivers are listed there. The independent market research shows that they expect the bioplastics industry to grow 27% year on year. We think, if anything, that's quite a conservative figure. It's actually quite consistent with the growth we've experienced, albeit off a fairly low base over the last 3 or 4 years as well. This is sort of to give you an idea of the outlook for SECOS. You'll look at the blue bars. That represents SECOS's traditional plastic film sales, which is, you can see, quite flat over the last 4 years, and we've got a bit of a guidance in there for 2019. And the orange bar represents our bioplastic sales, and you can see that it's consistent with the market research that shows that there's at least over 25% growth in sales. We're experiencing that plus more in our own business year on year in bioplastic sales. So what we do see is, over time, the mix of bioplastic sales compared to traditional sales in our business will certainly be well skewed towards the bioplastic business over time. So we see ourselves as a bioplastics company. Our traditional film sales that we have in the blue, the aim is they currently supply a number of blue chip customers around the world, nappy manufacturers, sanitary napkins manufacturers and so forth. The aim is to see those blue chip tier 1 type customers work on changing over from using just traditional film and start to use bioplastic film. And we already have those customers, so not only are we selling our bioplastics to new markets, to certain niche applications, and seeing huge growth, we have an opportunity over the coming years to convert these tier 1 customers that are already buying our hygiene film and start to move towards environmentally based products. That's just a little picture of the sort of products we have. That's most of the products you'll see on the market that are being sold. There are categories usually in the pet market, where we buy pet bags, waste diversion bags. So councils that are, in particular in Australia and around the world, that are implementing waste diversion programs to get people to separate their waste so that organic waste doesn't end up in landfill. They use our bags. We won a contract last year, Penrith City Council, for example, for $1.5 million. And that's one of our fastest growing segments in the market, where bioplastics actually isn't just a replacement product, it's forming part of a solution and has to perform. Our technology can actually degrade within 6 days. We can make it degrade within a year. So it's not just about replacing the technology from one plastic to another. It actually has to perform a key function, and certainly in the waste diversion stream, it does that very, very well. We see ourselves, all our growth moving forward as a business, it's all about the resin. So we make the resin. We have sold bags, we've sold different finished products, but the aim and the growth strategy for the business is purely to grow through manufacturing resin, which will leverage off the technology that we have in the company. We've done that by implementing a new plant in Malaysia, which is due to launch next month. It's got capacity to do about $9 million in sales next year. We're not forecasting quite that much, but we've got the capacity for it. And when it's fully kitted out, it'll have the capacity to do up to $40 million in sales just out of that one plant, with opportunities then to expand into the US and other markets that are buying heavily our resins and switching over to the bioplastics industry. There's some of our customers. You can see some of the blue chip customers. We've got Henkel in Germany, Kimberly-Clark buy from us, Pet Value, one of the biggest pet companies in the world, US, and a lot of the councils that use our waste diversion products. So we certainly already have an end-to-end solution in terms of access to the market, and our strategy is to find new markets and also to convert the existing customers from our traditional plastics to bioplastics. We also get significant tax exemptions with the new plan in Malaysia. We've been classified with Bionexus status, which gives us a number of, and you can get this off the internet, but certainly benefits from actually producing that materials or biomaterials out of Malaysia. The government there is particularly supportive of the business. The path to growth for us is that there's a number of opportunities when we, as we grow the resin, to reduce our cost structure, because it gives us the scale. We're still only at $28 million in sales. As those sales grow, you'll find that our margin will grow. So our profit point's obviously a lot lower than you think. So I think we've really done. Okay, so I think that's about it. If anyone wants more detail, please, you're welcome to come and have a chat to us, and we're happy to explain it in more time. Okay, great, thank you.